Have you ever felt like you're just doing way too much work to get the data you need from an API? Making call after call, getting back these huge chunks of information, and then you have to sift through it all and piece it together. Well, today we're going to talk about a technology designed to fix exactly that. It's called GraphQL, and it's a totally different way of thinking about data. So let's get right into it. To really get what makes GraphQL so special, we first need to understand the problem it's trying to solve. And honestly, the best way to do that is with a pretty simple analogy. Let's call it the API errand run. All right, so with traditional APIs, the REST and SOAP APIs that have pretty much powered the web for decades, getting all the data you need is like running a bunch of separate errands. First, you have to drive to the grocery store for dinner ingredients. That's one API call. Then you realize you need gas, so you have to drive to the gas station. That's a second API call. And finally, you have to go pick up the kids from school. That's a third API call. 3 different stops, 3 separate requests, just to get everything you need. But what if you could skip all that running around? What if you could just hand a single, detailed list to a personal assistant who goes out and does everything for you in one trip? Well, that in a nutshell is the incredibly powerful idea behind GraphQL. So, what is it, officially? GraphQL is a query language for your APIs. Think of it like a special syntax, a very specific way of talking to a server that lets you describe precisely what data you want. So instead of making all those different trips, you just hand over one detailed list, and your personal assistant, the GraphQL server, handles the rest. The advantage of this approach becomes obvious, like immediately. First, you get back exactly the data you asked for. Nothing more, nothing less. You can combine what would have been maybe 3, 4, 5 different requests into a single, elegant one. And this makes your code so much cleaner, way easier to understand, and it gives you, the developer, the ultimate flexibility and control over your data. Okay, so analogies are great, but let's see how this thing actually works in the real world. We're going to take a look at a few examples using Yelp's public GraphQL API, which is a perfect way to see this in action. Okay, so imagine we're building an app, and we need some details for a restaurant. Our GraphQL query is basically our shopping list. We're telling the API, hey, I want the business's name, its ID, its rating, and a list of its reviews. That's it. That's our list. And look at this. The response we get back is a perfect mirror of our request. The structure of the data, the JSON, it matches the shape of our query perfectly. We get those exact fields we asked for all in one super efficient trip. But now, let's switch gears. Let's say we're designing a different screen in our app, maybe one that just needs a quick summary of the restaurant. We don't need to load all of that review data. So instead of having to find a whole new endpoint, we just modify our query. We just take that reviews field right out. And the result? The API responds with just the name, ID, and rating. The reviews are gone, precisely because we didn't ask for them this time. We're not wasting bandwidth or slowing down our app with data we aren't even going to use. So what if our app evolves and now we need to show the restaurant on a map? Do we need a new endpoint for that? Nope. We just go back to our same query and we add what we need. In this case, we'll ask for the coordinates. And we can even specify that we want the latitude and the longitude inside of that. And just like that, the response adapts again. Now it includes the coordinates, perfectly nested inside the data. This ability to just add or remove fields on the fly, that is the ultimate flexibility we were talking about. It's a total game changer. There's a quote from the source material that just says it all perfectly. The way you consume the data matches exactly what you need. That is the fundamental promise of GraphQL. No overfetching extra data, no underfetching and having to make another request, just precision. So how does this magic actually work? How does the server know what data is even available and how to go get it? Well, it all comes down to a really clear and organized structure on the back end. It really boils down to 3 core building blocks. First, the server has a schema. Think of this like a super detailed menu that defines every single piece of data you could possibly ask for. Second, you write queries, and that's the shopping list we were just practicing with. It's your specific order from that big menu. And finally, behind the scenes, you have the resolvers. These are like the workers, or maybe the chefs, who know exactly where to go to find the data for each item on your list and bring it all back to you. And, it's not just for fetching data. While a query is a read-only operation, GraphQL also has what are called mutations. You use those to actually change data on the server, create something new, update it, or delete it. And then there are subscriptions, which are amazing for real-time applications. Think about a chat app or live sports scores. Subscriptions can notify your app automatically the very moment that data changes. By getting rid of so much of the friction we had with older APIs, GraphQL gives developers this incredibly precise control over their data. And that opens up all kinds of possibilities for faster, more creative, and more powerful applications. So the question it really leaves us with is this. If you could get exactly the data you need, all in one single request, what would you build?